Welcome, I'm Brick Road and this is Let's Play Mega Man X4. One way in which Zero differs from X is that he doesn't get weapons from the bosses he kills. Rather, he learns new abilities and sword techniques. Some of these techniques will hit boss weak points, but since not all of the prizes are techniques, Zero has to fight a few bosses with just his wits and his saber. So rather than identifying a boss order based on weakness, I prefer to take the bosses with the most useful abilities first, and no ability is more useful than the one gained from Split Mushroom. The Bio-Laboratory is split into 4 sections. First you have this pretty swank looking spiral staircase, then a cramped horizontal section, then a dangerous vertical section, then a boss fight. Since every stage in X4 is comprised of 2 areas, this pattern repeats itself in the second half. One benefit to stages being split in half is that you get a free health refill right at the midpoint. This means if the first half of the stage is sufficiently short, you can pretty much just barrel through it with no regard to personal safety and come out no worse for wear. I typically don't use this strategy since it's more fun to put Zero's agility and his laser sword to work, and let's face it, it looks a lot less sloppy. Managing the saber properly actually commands a good deal of attention, which is why I'm doing this LP with scripted rather than live commentary. It took a long time to learn the range, speed, and recovery for all of Zero's various slashes, and playing the game well is all about positioning. The hitbox on that triple slash combo actually extends in all directions at different points in the attack, which offers Zero a great deal of short-range versatility. This is a sharp contrast to X, who can really only hit monsters directly ahead of him. Anyway, during my test plays I found that splitting my attention between playing the game and narrating actually produced pretty crappy commentary. Either I was talking and taking a lot of unnecessary hits, or I was concentrating so much on the game that I wasn't saying anything interesting. Not that anything really interesting is going on in this scene here. This mid-boss is one of the most boring in the game, and it illustrates something I don't really like about the X series. The emphasis on sub-bosses baffles me. They're almost never hard to kill. If they made the mid-bosses too hard, beginning players would never see any of the Mavericks, and they're the stars of the show. They often have the same life bar as a Maverick though, which makes for long, tedious fights like this one. Several X games have entire stages comprised of one or more such bosses. It's not fun and it's not challenging, it's just busy work, and I'm glad X4 doesn't indulge too deeply in it. The second half of the level kicks off with another spiral staircase. This is actually a pretty cool trick, making it look like the stage is rotating around you. They tried this again in X5, but screwed up the perspective so badly it looks like the stairs exist in some bizarre Escher dimension. Ruins the effect. The X series also added all kinds of pickups to collect, armor pieces and heart tanks and so on. To get a full clear, you usually have to revisit stages, which doesn't sit well with me. Only in X4 and only playing as Zero can you get all the pickups on your initial pass through the stages. If you're quick, you can get this heart tank by climbing the crumbling ceiling. Otherwise, you have to execute a somewhat tricky wall jump to get up there. There are only a few items in the game Zero needs special abilities to reach, but I'll have what I need by the time I reach them. Even as X though, this game is pretty backtrack friendly. His optimal path only requires revisiting one level. Compare this to X3 or X5 where you have to revisit practically every level, sometimes twice. And speaking of bad level decisions, who thought it was a good idea to cap off the biolab with this slow, boring elevator? Between this and the dome mid-boss, Split Mushroom isn't winning any awards for stage design. Fortunately though, there aren't many other spots in X4 that are designed to slow you down. They're pretty much all ghettoized to this one stage. Unfortunately, they took the guys who designed this ghetto and let them run hog wild in the sequels. If you want to see the worst stage in Mega Man X history, look up Blaze Heatniks sometime. That level causes cancer. In case you couldn't tell, Zero's saber deals more damage during air attacks than it does on the ground. This is only part of the reason I favor jumping attacks though. Zero is also far more maneuverable in the air since he can move around mid-slash. The third hit of his ground combo is more powerful still, but less useful against bosses since they'll be in their invincibility frames from the first hit. The end result is that I fight as few battles on the ground as possible. Split Mushroom doesn't give me much of a choice though. He starts the battle by attacking me from on high. This works to my advantage since I can get a lot of hits in during these early telegraphed attacks. If you're quick and you know how to dodge the soul bodies, you can get Mushroom down to almost half health before he splits apart and starts fighting for real. The fight gets a little trickier when you have to dodge 2 mushrooms at once. Only one of them can be damaged, and that one moves a little faster than the others, so you can't fall into a comfortable rhythm of dodge and counterattack. When Mushroom starts his spin attack, you can control where he drops, but this can be tough since the other Mushroom is running around pestering you. I'm not really coordinated enough to keep track of what both mushrooms are doing, so I'm thankful the first phase of this fight is such a breeze. Note too that Mushroom's health bar is represented by a maverick symbol. Okay, maybe I should have pointed that out while his health bar was still on screen. Just rewind a few seconds and make a note of it. Some of the bosses are represented instead by the Repliforce symbol, which has some vague plot significance. This was the first X game where they tried to develop some of the Mavericks as characters. Of course they failed, since the plot is stupid and should be disregarded. It's just an interesting little tidbit. The reason I fight Mushroom first is to get Kuenbu, which gives Zero 2 abilities. The first is the all-important double jump, increasing his aerial maneuverability. The second is the 360-degree slashing attack, which becomes his bread and butter for the rest of the game. This technique doesn't hit the next boss's weak point, but it gives Zero the agility and range he needs to come ahead in the fight, which we'll see in the next video.